Hey, it's Alan, and I just wanted to let you know that you can now listen to the ongoing history of new music early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Before we begin, I want to let you know about a new show from Curious Cast that I think you might really enjoy. It's called Russia Rising. Putin's Russia has been accused of using internet trolls and hackers and even assassins to influence the West. This new investigative podcast hopes to unravel this giant mystery with the help of those who know best. Russian trolls, hackers, Putin supporters, even a former Russian KGB agent. Join Europe Bureau Chief of Global News, Jeff Semple. He goes on a journey to unravel how Russia has gone from tenuous ally to a potential global threat. You can listen to Russia Rising for free at curiouscast.ca or wherever you're enjoying the ongoing history of new music. Do it. Trust me, you'll love it. When you're in a band, you want to make sure the public record is correct. But you're often at the mercy of someone else when it comes to creating that record. First, there's your publicist and anyone at your record label dealing with marketing. They issue bios and press releases where the writer seems to have been paid by the word. They're paid to fill a page or two in 10-point font, so they revert to lots of flowery language that signifies absolutely nothing. Frankly, I find most official band bios close to useless because they really don't tell you anything about the band. A site like allmusic.com does better, but often all the writer has to work with are those official bios and other secondary sources. Then we have Wikipedia, which has its drawbacks, but, for the most part, Wikipedia entries can be very good because editors incorporate information from a variety of sources, including a lot of feature stories and interviews. In my opinion, though, nothing beats getting every member of the band together in a room at the same time and getting them to tell their own story. It's hard, given the schedules musicians keep, but with a little persistence and a lot of persuasion, it can be done. So, Wikipedia editors, listen up. If you want to make additions and changes to the entry on Arkells, here's your chance. This is a conversation between me and all 5 members of the band with their story in their own words. So start taking notes. Here are all the citations you need.
This is the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross.
Hello again, I'm Alan Cross, and this is another ongoing history program in an occasional series called In Their Own Words. Now, this is where I wrangle up an entire band, get them into a studio, and get them to tell their story in a way that is as unvarnished as possible. This time, it's the 5 guys from Arkells, a band that's sort of from Hamilton. You'll see what I mean about that in a moment, which, since forming in 2006, has become one of Canada's most popular and successful bands of the last decade. Not only can they fill a stadium, more on that in a bit, they have a stature that allowed them to blag free airline tickets to the Olympics after doing nothing more than a quick tweet. We'll get to that too. Bottom line is that if you're a fan, you're going to become very engrossed very quickly. And if you're not, I still guarantee you'll be sucked in because everybody likes a good story, right? Arkells, and Only for a Moment from their 2018 album Rally Cry. Now, let's start hearing from Max Kerman, guitarist Mike DeAngelis, bass player Nick Ditka, drummer Tim Oxford, and keyboardist Anthony Carone.
Max, you go first.
Yeah, I grew up in downtown Toronto, and I played in a couple of high school bands, and I had a good time doing that. I learned how to play guitar when I was 15, 16 years old, and I ended up leaving Toronto to go to Hamilton to attend McMaster University. And I wasn't that interested in school, but I did know I'd be meeting a lot of new people that might want to start a band with me.
Well, what did you study in university?
Political science.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
See, I did too.
Oh, yeah. Here we are.
Thinking that, and look what we're doing for a living.
Yeah. It was more to appease my parents who thought I should go away to school. And also, getting the experience of living on campus and all that is a privilege and something I had a great time doing. But I did immediately start profiling people on campus and seeing, does this look like the kind of person that would want to be in a band with me? And on the first day I met Mike, and on the second day I met Nick. And so I was very lucky.
You're literally the first and second day that you were in university.
Yeah, so the story is that, and then the great thing about Welcome Week is you can talk to anybody. Everybody is very friendly. And I asked Mike, I met Mike, and I said, who are your favorite bands? You into music? And he said, yeah, I'm into this band. You probably haven't heard of them. They're from Winnipeg. They're called the Weaker Thans. And they were my favorite band at the time. Reconstruction Site, their album had just come out. I'd just seen them in Hamilton that summer, and I was obsessed with that band. And then I kind of pushed him over. I was like, oh my God, do you play an instrument? And he said, I kind of play guitar. And I said, you're in the band. And then the next day, Nick introduced himself to me because I was wearing a Sam Roberts Band t-shirt. And Nick said, I like Sam Roberts. And then I said, do you play any instruments? And he said, I kind of play the bass. I said, all right, you're in the band.
Mike, your story.
Yeah, I grew up in Guelph, Ontario. And similarly, I sort of played in high school with friends. I played in the school band, and I played the flute. It was a real rough time. But, that really pushed me to pick up the electric guitar, like as many a young guy does, to try to make himself feel a little cooler. And, I think for me, going to school, similar to Max, was a real experience to meet a lot of different people. And when I met Max, he's not lying when he sort of like half pushed me over, and he was wearing a really funny like conductor's hat and just had a lot of like this sort of like outward energy that I noticed right away as, hey, that'd be a good guy to be a front man. Because I knew I didn't want to do that. In my high school band, I defaulted to that position, but was very uncomfortable and probably not very good. Well, definitely not very good.
What were you studying in university?
Political science as well.
Okay. Why? I mean, you guys must be great on the tour bus when it comes to talking about.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it kills the drive so fast.
Yeah, we've killed. It's like we've almost killed each other, but we've definitely killed a lot of drives.
Yeah, you blink and you're in the next town. It's great.
Okay, over to Nick.
Yeah, so similar to these guys, I went to Mac. I grew up in London, Ontario, and I went to school with kind of designs on being a prof. And so I wanted to kind of stay in school. But then I kind of met these guys, and everything kind of just happened by accident for me. I didn't have grand plans to have a life in music, but, as we started playing more and more through university and, afterwards, it just kind of became harder and harder to think about walking away from it. So that's what kind of led me to a life in music.
Did any of you guys graduate?
Yeah, we all did. We're all mama's boys.
Yeah.
And what were you taking?
I was in poli-sci philosophy. Yeah, we had lots of classes together over the first.
Nick was the most
2
studious.
years.
We stole his notes for sure.
Oh, man. I remember when Max needed to borrow stuff, school related, like notes or something, he'd always ask to meet me at the ice cream shop because he knew that would put me in a good mood. Yeah, TCBY.
Yeah. Tim.
Okay. I was born in Quebec, grew up in Newmarket, Ontario, and I did not go to McMaster. I knew I wanted to be a musician at a pretty young age, so I started playing guitar very badly for a couple years, and then moved over to the drums at about 12. And I was sort of, all in right away.
So how did you meet these characters?
I met them through I went to audio school, and then from there I started playing with just anyone I could and everyone I could. And so I started to build this network of people who I'd fill in for or whatever, but, do pub gigs and stuff like that. And then one of them led me to this, our previous keyboard player. And through him, he said, I got these friends in Hamilton, they need a drummer. And so, I lived in Newmarket, so it was a bit of a drive at first. But yeah, sort of came out to start working on the 5-song EP, and then
I took one look at Tim and I said, no way, and I slammed my guitar down and walked out of the room.
Well, we had a not so serious drummer, and God bless him, nice guy, but he didn't have a working hi-hat. So
okay, wait, that's kind of like a requirement, isn't it?
Well, that's the point.
Yeah,
that's why I didn't quite last.
The hi-hats were also broken.
They're broken
so
too.
Every show it was constantly open and broken. Yeah. So we had a bit of a unique sound in those days.
Imagine some of like the songs on Jackson Square, except just crash cymbal through the whole song.
There's a lot of that going on. So, so then when we met Tim, it was like, whoa, this guy's really professional, because he was a very accomplished drummer, but his equipment also worked.
Something tells me that wasn't his first impression of us.
Yeah. What was your first impression of us, Tim?
If I'm being totally honest, I went home and I remember Sarah being like, hey, my lady saying, hey, how'd it go? You were trying out with that band or whatever. And I was like, it was good. I don't think I probably won't go back.
Really?
Initially. But then like, I forget what, I think the next thing we did was record, like, because it was very quickly after. We
recorded like at your house too.
Yeah,
because here's a drummer who's not only a great drummer but also went to school for recording and had facilities like in his basement. We're like, oh my god, this is a big package here.
Okay, and then finally we'll talk to Anthony. So your story is
I came into the picture a little later, but when I was younger, I grew up in Mississauga, in Streetsville, nice little kind of punk rock music scene there, and I played in guitar in some punk rock bands, all the while taking piano lessons. When I graduated high school, I went to Humber College, kept playing in bands, and that's actually where I met Tim. I played in a cover band, bass, oddly enough, which I don't know how you made the connection that I played keys, but which is really funny. So Tim went off and started playing with these guys. I was still kind of doing some cover stuff, playing in like punk rock bands. I went on Warped Tour, and in the middle of that Warped Tour,
who were you playing with for Warped?
Ill Scarlet.
Oh, cool.
I was with them for a couple of years, yeah. And Tim calls me in the middle of that tour and goes, our keyboardist is going back to school and we need someone to come in. And so I had kind of learned everything on the road, and then like 2 days after I got back, I went and jammed with them at Dan's basement. And I was in full Warped Tour attire too. I had like, my head was shaved. I was wearing like a bandana cut off shirt, and aesthetically I still am surprised that they went.
So what year was this?
2012.
But let's go back to these first recordings. So you guys get together, and Dan's your keyboard player. Dan Griffith at the time was your keyboard player. And where did Dan come into the picture?
So Dan went to Mac with us, and he joined the band a little after the three of us started jamming, and with our original drummer.
There was another band called the Surly Young Bucks, which if anybody wants to go digging, there's some stuff on the internet. It's kind of like a half band cover band. And
the band,
like
okay,
and kind of like just like country sort of styled music, and Dan had a few songs, and there was some, like, we played some original songs, and I think that's where I met Dan for the first time.
Yeah, there was a bit of a music scene around McMaster at the time. There was a ska band called the Johnstones.
I remember them, yeah.
Who had a bit of a run there. And there was an MC named MJ, Miles Jones, who does production work now in Toronto. Robin Delento, who's a great singer-songwriter herself. So there's like a lot of kind of music happening. And it was also at the height of the kind of like indie rock era, the golden age, I'd say, so every week at the club, it seemed like at the Casbah or the Underground, there was bands like Winter Sleep or Joel Plaskett, Constantine, Stars, Sam Roberts, Arcade Fire, all these bands just coming through Hamilton that we got to go.
So this is like 2006, 2007?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we started at 2004 is when I met them. And then, we graduated 2008. So that whole period of time, we got to see a lot of shows.
I did find some Surly Young Bucks. You can certainly hear bits of Arkells in songs like this. It's called Coastin'.
Welcome, everyone, to the Surly Young Bucks reunion show. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
This is a special evening.
It's a special evening. Thanks for remembering.
No, our love never needed any pretty scenery, and we embraced the summer heat and those walks that take forever through suburban streets.
Surly Young Bucks, a pre-Arkells band, recorded when they had a reunion show in 2007, about a year after the Arkells started as a going concern. Now that we have a foundation, let's build on their story when part one of In Their Own Words from the Arkells continues in just a sec. This is part one of another In Their Own Words profile, and this time I'm talking with all 5 members of Arkells. Okay, that's a bit of a weird name. Where exactly did that come from?
So when did Arkells actually form as Arkells?
We called ourselves Charlemagne as our first band name, and That was our name from our first gig. It was a McMaster Battle of the Bands till about 2007.
Would have been late 2007 or 2008.
So so we graduated. So it was late 2007. We had just started working with Dynalone Records, and they were going to. And we told Joel, we said, we're gonna graduate in 3 months, and then after that, we're all yours. And he agreed to that, and he said, we're gonna put a flyer for your EP. We're gonna re-release your Deadlines EP, and we're gonna put the flyer in the City and Color record. And that's going to go out across Canada, and there's going to be, hundreds of thousands of these things available. While that was happening, there was another Charlemagne on MySpace who had threatened to sue us if we didn't change our name. So we got back to Joel and we said, Joel, we have to change our name. There's something we haven't told you. We can't be called Charlemagne anymore. So he said, okay, but this thing is going to the printer in 45 minutes. So you need a new name in 45 minutes because we need to put this flyer in the City and Color record that's going to print. So then we frantically got on the phone. I was at the library at McMaster, I still remember, and we called everyone. I was like, guys, we've got to change the name now, because we've been sitting on this kind of decision for a long time, and we just hadn't got around to it.
Yeah, we sort of put it off. Like once this guy was sending us all those messages. Yes, exactly. And then we're like, well, whatever. He's in the States somewhere, whatever. We put it off for far too long, and then as you mentioned, it was like, okay, we got to figure out a name like right now on this phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Max and I lived in a house on Arkells Street, and that's basically in a last minute ditch effort. We were like, kind of sounds like 60s Motown, Arkells.
Do we put a definite article before it, or is it just Arkells?
On an ad mat, it's just Arkells.
Okay.
If you're speaking English, you can say, I went to go see the Arkells last night, and that's fine.
So let's talk about the Deadlines EP. That was an independent release. That you did yourself, and you recorded it at...
Where did we record it?
We recorded
Scarborough.
Yeah, we did.
Was his name Ryan?
Ryan Mills. Yeah,
we
did a batch of songs as under the Charlemagne Deadlines EP, and then when we re-released it, we used a couple that we did in my basement as well. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is about 2007.
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 songs.
songs.
Yeah.
Was it there? So did you have? I don't even know. Was it a CD?
Yeah, CD. Yeah.
Okay, and then there was a digital re-release through Dynalone.
Yeah, I think they physically re-released it too.
CD as well, yeah.
CD.
Let's go back to that first EP. It was self-released at first and then reissued by Dynalone Records. The original release date was July 3rd, 2008, and it led off with this version of a soon-to-be familiar song.
So this builds up to Jackson Square in 2008. For anybody who's never been to downtown Hamilton, explain what Jackson Square is.
It's a mall. It's like an downtown core mall that you'd find in a lot of sort of Canadian cities. That's a little bit dated, kind of like a low ceiling, sort of
brutalist architecture.
Yeah, around the time especially, it was like seemed to be like emptying out and places were closing up and all around that area is sort of, it felt, I don't know, it was the core of Hamilton, and I think for us there was a part of it that we found to be really like inspiring about Hamilton, sort of like the fight in the city, and like around that time as well in 2008, I feel like the city there was like this light in the distance that we could sort of see that it was changing, that there was this creative community, and I think in a way it was sort of just like,
it was a few years before the downtown gentrification really kicked in.
Yeah, but there's definitely some songs on the record, I think, that like there's a song called Abigail that in my mind, I don't know, it didn't take place in Jackson Square Mall, but it seemed like the sort of story that would take place there. Yeah,
it's kind of the center of town too, and it was like, you could walk 2 blocks to like any of the 4 clubs that we'd play at, and yeah, it just seemed kind of like the real heart of the city.
Now, none of you guys are from Hamilton.
No.
Yet you seem to have adopted Hamilton as your home. Why?
Well, it's easier than saying we're the Arkells from Newmarket, London, Mississauga, Guelph, and Toronto, which is really it. It's like, because the band needs to be from somewhere, and the band was born in Hamilton, and that's where we rehearsed a lot.
Yeah, the same way, like as a person, like I grew up in London. All my kind of like formative experiences happened in London. But as a band, all our formative experiences happened in Hamilton. Like we're never going to know the clubs in any other city the way we know the clubs in Hamilton, or, our connections to the music scene and all those really important things for us happened in Hamilton. First time we played, the first time we ever sold anything out. That's all those kind of like core things that are important to a band, I think we experienced in Hamilton.
Well, I know the people of Hamilton. I've lived there. I've worked there. And if you show Hamiltonians loyalty, it comes back 10 times.
Yeah, it's true. They are really proud of their own, and I think they're extra proud of artists or anybody really that goes out into the world and tries to achieve something too, and then comes back. I think they really appreciate that as well.
Let's talk a little bit about Jackson Square and the singles on it. You had a pretty good run of singles. I think the first I ever heard of you guys was through "Oh, the Boss is Coming," and I remember thinking about that, looking at that title, going, that's a strange title. There's got to be a story, and I've never had a chance to ask you about it.
Yeah, the story of "Oh, the Boss is Coming"?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all were working terrible jobs when we were either through the summers in university, like Mike picked up needles on the top of Jackson Square.
I had to run a real bad ones. I also worked in a distribution warehouse, which is a bleak place.
Yeah, like temp jobs. So that is sort of like reflecting on that. I got fired as a waiter. The job was fine. I was probably deserving of the firing.
Max called me right after we met for a drink.
Yeah, I was like, Mike, I got some bad news. Come up, meet with me.
You just said, I got some bad news. I can't give you free bread and salad anymore.
At Eastside Mario's anymore. Yeah.
You got fired from Eastside Mario's.
Yeah, in Dundas, Ontario.
Good to know.
Shout out. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think musically, it really reflected like the music that we were listening to at that time, like the Constantines and Winter Sleep, a little bit more like guitar-driven indie rock.
The Ballad of Hugo Chavez makes a lot more sense now that I know that we've got three political scientists in the band.
Yeah,
because this was back in the day that Hugo was really turning things upside down in Venezuela. I don't know of too many shout-outs that you would have to a semi-brutal, super socialist South American dictator, but what brought this on?
At the time, he was a bit of a darling of people on the left, because I think people in Venezuela and around the world like saw him as a real like hopeful leader. I think history hasn't been that good to that song, because I think in the years since, I don't know if his reputation.
Well, Sean Penn liked him.
Yeah, Sean. Yeah,
Courtney Love liked him.
Yeah, at the time he was. For the most part, I mean, I think there's some people in Venezuela who never liked him to begin with, but I did like the idea, and I've always liked the idea of writing about a character in a very specific time and place in his life. And the song takes place like when he was in jail in the 90s and learning about, different socialist revolutions himself, and that time in jail really informed the rest of his life. And I think, I don't know, we've always tried to write about interesting, nuanced characters that are complicated. I think that song tries to do that.
Okay, well, Simon Bolivar and Che Guevara are your next assignments.
Yeah, there you go.
And the other single, the final single, 4 singles from a debut album is pretty good, was John Lennon.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of speaks for itself, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. Well, that song was very Westdale, Hamilton focused, which is the area around the university. And it's sort of about painting a picture of what it was like living there in the summertime. And I like the idea of I'm John Lennon 67 is this idea of feeling sorry for yourself, because John Lennon was on top of the world in 67, but I know he was probably going through some depression. And he was really miserable. And it's sort of, I'm kind of poking fun at myself, I think, in that song, where I'm laughing about sort of just being young and confused and having no real reason to feel sorry for yourself, but feeling that way.
Are you the chief lyricist? The only lyricist?
Yeah, I mean, I start the songs, but the more we do it, the more there's a pretty good heavy dose of editing going on from the guys, where I go, is there a better way to say this? Or is this part clear? So it is very collaborative in that sense. I think all of us kind of think about our responsibilities in a very collaborative way.
Is it an all for one for all songwriting split?
Yeah, now it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it just reminded me of John Lennon. I can remember being in a subway with you and Nick, and I think Nick made a joke about there's a line in that song, "Get Frank McCourt to write the foreword," because there's a girl who's talking about writing a book about her life, but like she had like a very charmed life, and it was sort of like the joke was like, get Frank McCourt to write the foreword.
Who wrote Angel's Ashes.
Like the most depressing possible book
ever
about hardship. So
yeah, the song is about like me kind of liking this girl, and she telling me about her trip to Europe. And she said, and it was in September. She said, everywhere we went in Europe, this one song followed us around. It was crazy. And I was thinking she'd like name drop a very cool song that was sort of obscure, but it was Hey Jude by the Beatles. I was like, that's the most popular song of all time. And then she was talking about wanting to write a book about her life, but again, she had a very charmed life. And I was telling Nick about this, and Nick said, she should get Frank McCourt to write the foreword to her book. And I was like, that is hilarious. So a lot of my good lyrics are actually just stolen from my smart friends.
This is part one of a two-parter In Their Own Words episode featuring Arkells. We've covered the roots of the band, their debut EP, and their first full album. Meanwhile, the band was playing whatever gigs they could land, and there were a lot of them.
So you guys have a reputation of playing anywhere and everywhere. There was a period, and it's still going on, but there was a period after this first album came out that you were everywhere. If your label asked you to be someplace, you were. If a radio station asked you to show up, you did. How many shows do you think you guys have played?
I couldn't even venture a guess.
Okay.
Anyone?
It's hundreds per year.
Yeah, I'm going to do back of the napkin math here and guess we do like 100 a year we've been doing this for 12 years. 1,200 shows. Okay. And do we include pop-ups?
Well, there's the pop-ups.
The
radio station appearances. The busking things that you guys will spontaneously do from time to time. So can we double that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely years that were 100 feels low. I mean, I wonder how many we did this year.
Yeah. I mean, we work between 175 and 200 days a year these days, and we probably have been doing that more or less for the last 10 years. So whether like all those days we're doing something musically directed to in some degree, some kind of performance for the most part.
Okay, so the Ramones in their lifetime played about 2,250 shows. So you've probably beaten the Ramones already.
Wow.
We have the advantage though because they can't really do acoustic stuff.
True.
Yeah.
Here's one of those pop-up appearances. Arkells, recorded live at 102.1 The Edge in Toronto.
When it happens over and over, can we hear it? Yeah, let's hear it by the whistleblower.
Arkells in a live version of Whistleblower, a track from their 2011 album Michigan Left. Still, much more to come with this In Their Own Words profile with Arkells. On part 2, we'll cover the recording and release of the Michigan Left album, High Noon, a strange little EP called Study Music. We'll get to Morning Report and the Rally Cry album. We'll go more into songwriting, how to release songs in the age of streaming, the massive triumph of filling a stadium in Hamilton, and how to get a free trip to South Korea. All that next time on part 2 of Arkells In Their Own Words. Meanwhile, if you want to explore other In Their Own Words shows with acts like Billy Talent, Sloan, Matt Good, Kings of Leon, and more, everything has been preserved as podcasts for free download. Just head to Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get podcasts for that matter, including Spotify and Google and all the other delivery platforms, and download as much as you like. If you can, rate and review the podcast too. That helps us very, very much. If you would like to connect with me directly, I'm always available through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Private correspondence can be sent to alan@alancross.ca. And you can also visit my website, which is ajournalofmusicalthings.com. It's updated every single day and comes with a newsletter summary delivered every morning, so you always know all the new and cool stuff that's happening in music. Technical productions by Rob Johnston. I'm Alan Cross.
You've been listening to the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross. Subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and everywhere you find your favorite podcasts.